This is the Code Deploy Go Live podcast, episode 13 with Julie Turner and Andrew Connell. This episode is available as a video on our YouTube channel, which is linked in the show notes. In this episode, we talked to Wes Preston, our first podcast guest, who's an MVP in the Power Platform space and at the TechCon 365 Atlanta conference to discuss Power Platform environments and how the Microsoft 365 ecosystem views them. And we also covered Power Apps Code Apps, or ALPACAs as we started calling them, and how they might relate to other extensibility methods. Recorded live August 21st, 2025. Hey, AC, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Julie. How are you?
Well, I'm hanging in there. We had lots going on in the last couple of weeks, but we're back at our desks, so that's all good.
Good to see each other in person last week, though.
Yeah, that was cool, and that will be the last time this year. So there's that. So it was good to get together for sure.
Sad face.
Yeah, I know it is what it is, though. Has to be what it is. So what have you been up to since you got back?
So it's kind of like been a waterfall since the conference. I had this epiphany as I was at the conference last week with something that I work on that is a big focus of mine on Copilot extensibility, Microsoft 365 Copilot extensibility. So at the conference, I did 2 workshops, one solo about declarative agents and one we're using the Agents Toolkit. And then one I did as a co-present with Mark Rackley, which was a dangerous thing to do, but I did it. We both talked about the same thing, about creating custom agents for Microsoft 365 Copilot. Mark focused on the Copilot Studio approach. I focused on the Agents Toolkit approach that was more for developers. And we kind of went back and forth. It was like an Iron Chef, like anything you can do, I can do better kind of a thing. We had some fun. It went really well. But I was really surprised by my discussions with attendees from that experience, from the Ask the Experts booth, from the roundtable that you and I co-hosted with some people, and also from a couple other sessions and then just discussions in the hallway track, that I had this theory it kind of gelled and hit me like a with a baseball bat on the last day of the conference. I put something up on LinkedIn. It got a lot of traction. I was like, screw it, I'm going to go deeper. And I wrote an article about it and published it this week. And effectively I think that Microsoft is doing developers a huge disservice. I mean, we could line those things up, but
I was just going to say how, because there's many that I could list.
Julie's like, which one?
Yeah.
So in this case here, when Microsoft is only... If you want to go through and you build a custom agent, there's a bunch of different options that you can choose from. And they really, to me, they fall into 2 big categories. One of them is, how do I create an agent that takes advantage of the existing Copilot experience and platform that Microsoft 365 has stood up? They've created the orchestrator, they've created this whole model or this whole infrastructure with like how knowledge, and they provide knowledge to the orchestrator, how you can get real-time data, and then how it all goes down to the model and how all that stuff works. So we've seen the slide where all that kind of comes together as this big square with a bunch of rectangles in it. You can build a custom agent that extends that platform, and you can do it with a bunch of different ways, with SharePoint agents to Agent Builder to Copilot Studio, and then using declarative agents with the Agents Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. The other way of creating an agent is to just kind of flip the entire stack over and just say, I'm going to own the stack. I'm going to create my own setup, my own orchestrator, my own model. And I'm going to do all of that. And most people are going to probably do it in Azure AI Foundry or if you're in the Microsoft stack, but you're not limited to that. You can use anything. My theory, or what hit me in my realization, I guess, the epiphany that I had last week was Microsoft is only talking about Copilot Studio and the Azure AI Foundry option. And they're completely skipping that declarative agent option that's available to developers. You saw the discussion that we had in the roundtable, and I had this discussion with a lot of other people. They thought, if I don't want to use Copilot Studio, I've got to go through and stand up an entire AI platform for my organization and write full code. And I'm like, no. If anything, I think that you could argue that the declarative agent option is a low-code option because it's really just JSON and optionally YAML And optionally, you can write code to build your own custom REST API if you want to use that as well. But it's not like you're going to go through and have this full code solution that you've got to build. I mean, the one that Mark and I went back and forth on, I didn't write any code except for just writing JSON, which is not code. It's just a way to describe something. So I wrote a big article about it. It's gotten a lot of push. It was my newsletter this week. It's gotten a lot of push on it. It's called, what did I call it? I called the Extend Microsoft 365 Copilot Declarative Agent Alternative to Copilot Studio. And I'm kind of sick of it because I realized that, not developers, when they learned about it, their eyes are wide open. Like, I didn't know there was even an option. I was like, it's right there. Like, this is an Andrew thing. I'm like, no, this is in the docs. That Microsoft even gives us tools to do this. So it was a big focus for me of what I've been focused on. And then addition to that, like, I guess that was a big thing. And then I'm looking forward to talking more about it in the future. I'm going to lean into this a whole lot more. So I've talked to people some people from Microsoft have already reached out to me this week. They're like, dude, your post from last week and your article this week, that's kind of ticking some people off. And I'm like, I didn't mean to tick anybody off. They're like, no. It's ticking people off at Microsoft about other people at Microsoft and why they're only creating slides that show two options when there's a really good option in the middle as well. I'm like, hey,
I see. Yep.
That's y'all's problem. I just simply pointed it out. So,
yeah.
So anyway, that's what I've been up to this week and kind of like digging into that, leading into it more and stuff, because I think it's a good, I think it's a good story for developers that just needs to get more word out. So that's me.
I mean, I think it's a lot about who you follow, because I definitely saw them all. I've seen Microsoft speakers talk through all of them, but I think that is definitely the case, especially what we were hearing at TechCon, that people just didn't even know that was an option. And honestly, if there was one I was going to lean into first, that would be it, right? Like, see where you can go with that one versus sort of the Copilot thing. But I'll let that slide for now. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Anyway, well, that's cool. Anything else going on that's interesting or neat or no?
I mean, I've got a bunch of webinars coming up. In September, I'm teaching a bunch of live classes. So I'll drop a link in the show notes here. But like, you want to learn SharePoint framework, you want to learn how to build declarative agents, you want to learn Microsoft Teams. I got a bunch of live classes that are all happening in September. All of them with early bird discounts if you register early. So I'll just leave it at that and just put a pointer in the show notes of where you can go learn more.
That's perfect. Well, on my end, it's interesting. We had a similar sort of epiphany at Sympraxis. We do a bi-weekly podcast as well. It's more of a Teams meeting where we invite, people that want to come join the team meeting. The idea is that it's interactive. Like, it's not like a conversation between one or more people that's pushed out. It's more like, we're having a conversation, you should join, please speak up or put information in the chat or ask questions or whatever it is. Like, it's meant to be that type of conversation. And so we did not this last Wednesday, but the 2 Wednesdays before that, we had a conversation about classic publishing and Microsoft in SharePoint Online being, I'm going to say, full on deprecated. Essentially what they did was that they said, as of September, the feature that enables classic publishing in SharePoint is going to be disabled, and you can use PowerShell to specifically override that. But then as of like March or April, I can't remember the exact date off the top of my head, but as of that date, it's gone entirely, and you will not be able to create new sites with the classic publishing templates and or even enable the classic publishing features in sites. So classic publishing, writing's on the wall. It's dead. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
I literally wrote the book on it.
Bob German and I joke about this too, because he wrote a book on Silverlight.
About my book?
Literally, no, not your book. He wrote a book on Silverlight, and literally like 2 months after it was published, they canceled Silverlight. And he's like, I cannot catch a break. Anyway, yes. So classic publishing is going away, and we are seeing a lot of chatter from that and a lot of churn. So it was really good. I think that we brought some visibility into it. And so that's good for people. The other thing going on is the Sympraxis team organizes a free community event towards the middle of October. It's on a Friday. It's called Collab Days New England. And essentially it's like the old SharePoint Saturdays that used to be community events, but essentially free all day. Speakers from all over actually come in and, give free content for the day. We have breakfast, we have lunch, we have a networking event. It's just a great time. We have some sponsors, which is awesome because if we didn't have them, we couldn't do lunch and breakfast and networking event. But at any rate, all of that sort of happens. So I definitely want to add in the show notes, if you're in the New England region on that day, you want to come see some free content and, network with people, you should definitely register to come to that event. So I will share that in the show notes.
What day was it? You said in middle of October.
Oh, yes. October 17th, 2025 is the exact
Was it 17th?
date.
I thought it was a different day. You know what? Okay, so I've been there before.
Now you're making me freak out. Did I say the wrong day?
No, you didn't. You didn't.
Okay,
No,
good.
I will tell you in just a minute why I screwed that up. I'll tell you in a minute why I screwed that up. But I don't have anything on the 16th, 17th, or 18th of October, and I would love to do that event again. So I may just be a late, I'm just showing up and I just want to attend, interact with people. And if you have somebody cancel, it's you need an extra speaker, I'll try and jump in. But
we literally had someone cancel yesterday. So
oh my God,
I do have a spot. So if you would like that spot, I'd be happy to offer it to you. You saw it here, folks, live. He was offered the spot, which he can also edit out in editing because he's in control.
And you're in a different location than you have been in the past, right?
Always the MTC in Burlington, Mass, and we do our event at the Archer Hotel. Same.
Well, I thought
same
you
thing.
said, I thought when I talked to you earlier this week, I thought you said it was in Waltham. So that was my bad.
No, I didn't correct the person. I just said yes at the MTC, which has moved. It used to be in Waltham and it's now in Burlington.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. Got it. I will, you know what? I need to look at my calendar. I will look at it. The reason I got messed up is because while we were at TechCon in Atlanta, literally it all came together in one day, but I am now a speaker at the M365 Twin Cities Collab Days on September the 19th. So
very cool. Well, that's cool. I have to get myself together and go to that sometime, but I haven't.
I think I'm the only developer that's going to be there. So my session is not very developer focused. It's kind of like what that article is I talked about earlier this week, something I'm leaning into, which is the whole what are my options when I want to build a custom agent for Microsoft 365, and what is the good, the bad, and the ugly of each one, and where would I fit, and when would I choose one? It's like the small 1 hour version of the full day workshop that Mark Rackley and I did. So
yeah. I love an Art of the Possible session. They're good.
I wasn't going to say that because I feel like that's your term, because you've got a session that does that with M365 or SharePoint.
I use that term a lot. Yes. But I think it's good because what Art of the Possible means to me is even if you're not a developer, you can come to this to just hear what the options are so that you can have intelligent conversations with the people who are developers and or your power users or whatever. So
and the
it's
thing I
free
like
to use.
Yeah, and the thing I like about this topic too is that what I found when I was doing that last week at TechCon was people who were using Copilot Studio, when they saw, Mark did a demo that was 20, 25 minutes long, and I'm like, well, I don't have topics and I don't have entities that are available to me in Copilot Studio, but I can do everything you just did with just some instructions, and I did it in about 5 minutes. And they were like, wait a minute, what? And so I had people about the Copilot Studio side that were coming to me afterwards, what? So why would I not do this? What does this give me? And so I think it's an awareness thing. I just think Microsoft does a really crappy job of telling customers what options they have. So at any rate, as I'm going to do in Minneapolis, and I'd love to do the same session up in New England. I need to make sure I have budget and the time that I can set aside to do it. So
understood. It's about the WAF. We get it.
I will get back to you on that. I will also make sure I'm not in trouble with the person I work for. So
don't we know it? I have that same thing going on.
Got to talk to the boss.
That actually is it. Yeah, for sure. That's an interesting segue. We could use that to segue to an intro of our interview with Wes. If you're ready to go, are we ready to talk about that?
Let's roll.
Let's do it. So you were talking about people not knowing about Copilot Studio and declarative agents being this middle ground. And it was, as you were talking about that, I was like, you know what? That is exactly sort of the precursor to why this conversation with Wes ended up happening and was so important, right? So Wes Preston, MVP in the Power Platform sort of space, friend of ours from, as we have been speaking in this community, we've been friends with him, for as long as we've, been involved in the community. So, absolutely excellent guy. He sort of wrote an article that he posted that was at the face of it. I think he was just basically saying that Power Platform has its place. And I think he misconstrued what we were saying in the episode where we talked about Power Platform, where we were sort of saying, hey, Power Platform is great, but it's all Microsoft Marketing talks about is Power Platform. And what about the Pro Code option? And nobody seems to know about the Pro Code option. And so that's why I was saying it's sort of the similar thing that you were talking about with declarative agents. Nobody knows about declarative agents because Microsoft Marketing is only talking about Copilot Studio and, depending on what conference you go to, really high-end pro code solutions for writing AI solutions, And so I think it was really good. So sitting down with Wes, we sat with him last Wednesday. So that was August 13th. While we were at TechCon, we chose a pretty poor spot for that interview, but it's fine. It's fine. You know what? Let's put a little teaser out. We would love for people to comment on our video to let us know how they felt about our location for our talk with Wes, because it was pretty funny. Anyway,
how would you have chosen what other location would you have chosen? Thankfully,
we have chosen.
Yes, the audio sounded just fine. The video I thought was at least okay. Our backdrop,
not so much.
I mean, when you're looking at a small, video of yourself and you're focused on like, do we look good? Are we showing up on camera? Do we fit in the frame? Everything all cool here? What we didn't look at, there was two things we didn't do. Number one, and I realized one of them right early on. I talked to you and Wes about it. So I'm curious if you guys pick up on this. Number one was we didn't look at what our background was. I'm not going to say it. I'll let people watch the Easter egg and see what it is. If you're just listening to the show, you might want to go jump over to YouTube and go see what this is because, oops, nobody got in trouble. There's nothing inappropriate.
It wasn't that.
No.
Just awkward.
And then the other thing was that I had the camera sitting on a table. It was like a rectangular table that had not cheap, but it was not a very nice table. So the camera was on one end. We were on the other end. And all three of us talk with our hands and we touch the table when we're doing that. And when we were doing that, we were pushing down on one side of the table, which was shaking the other side of the table where the camera is. And so I realized it about 5 minutes into our 35-minute conversation, and I'm sitting here like grabbing the table and trying to push up the entire time, but I couldn't stop you guys. And I'd see like, you would do it, and Wes, I stopped doing it, but because I recognized it, but you guys didn't recognize it, so I didn't have a way to tell you, going, hey, Wes, stop hitting the table, or Julie, stop hitting the table when you're trying to say something. Use jazz hands. So, my bad. But anyway, we'll come back in episode 50 or 100 or 150 or 400. We'll look back at it and go remember when we did that in episode 13? Remember how stupid I was in picking that location? Yeah, my bad.
Well, it's all good. It's all good. So we'll put that episode here next, and then we'll have a few things to say probably. Hey everybody, welcome to Code Deploy Go Live at TechCon 365 Atlanta, and with us here is Wes Preston. Hi Wes, how are you? And we're going to talk about some stuff that we've been talking about online, but we're going to do it while we're all together, so that's great. So Wes, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are so that our listeners know?
My name is Wes Preston. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I don't know the count anymore, but it was 2009, since 2009. I'm primarily in the productivity space, working with SharePoint and lists and Power Platforms, specifically Power Apps these days.
Awesome. Awesome. So what we wanted to do is have a conversation with you about, so a couple episodes ago, and Andrew, do you remember what episode?
No, we'll remember when we edit.
Oh, okay, great. We'll remember it when we edit it. Several episodes ago, you and I talked about Power Platform and sort of our frustrations with the fact that Microsoft sort of puts it forward as the way to do extensibility in Microsoft 365, and how we just feel like the pro dev story doesn't get a lot of love. And Wes, you wrote a really great LinkedIn post that I thought was super articulate about the fact that Power Platform has a place. And I think both Andrew and I definitely agree that Power Platform has a place. But we thought it'd be really good to have you with us, and so we could talk about that a little bit more. So,
as our very first guest.
As our very first guest.
I didn't know that.
We're sharing a mic back and forth in a very awkward way. Very good way. Anyway, so we thought maybe we could have a conversation more about that. And so, do you want to sort of recap what your position was?
Well, I think my initial thoughts were that it wasn't, I guess my initial thoughts were that in almost every talk that I give, I talk about the fact that dev is part of our world, because I give the pitch that I am pushing for out-of-the-box capabilities as far as you can go, and then getting into code because of licensing and all of the costs that you already have. But I always make a point of saying that development is part of that. But I agree with you guys in the sense that I think the marketing is specifically from Microsoft when we talk about M365. Is that the development, the pro dev approach isn't talked about enough, and I think it is overwhelmed by the marketing of the Power Platform.
Yeah.
So in general, those are I think we're in agreement on.
Yep.
But it's definitely one that's changing too, because we've got different code options, we've got different makerspace type things that are coming from the Power Platform. So.
Yeah, we even saw, I remember now what triggered this was we were doing at this same event, that TechCon 365, but in Seattle, when Julie and I hosted a roundtable, and it was supposed to be for development, and a bunch of people walked in and had no idea that there was another option other than to customize and extend Microsoft 365 other than Power Apps.
Yeah.
And so now it was like, no, there's another option. It depends on what you want to build, but SharePoint's got stuff, Teams has got stuff, Copilot has stuff.
And there's multiple approaches to it. Right. I mean, even in the dev world, right?
Right. There's totally different approaches to it. So you want to have the ability, you want to just have the flexibility of just knowing what the audience is going to be in charge of making the customization. The audience is going to be the one to consume it, the size of the audience, what's the skill set of people that are actually doing it, who's it intended for. So it's never one is the right solution. It's always, it depends. And just to echo what you were saying too, I think that the challenge is that Microsoft is so incentivized on the licensing side for Power Platform, whereas the dev side, you could go far on the extreme and say it's the exact inverse of that, and saying I'm trying to teach you how to extend it without licensing, right? Yep. Without having to pay for a Power Platform license. So I can see where there's a lot more frustration and friction between the two different camps. But like you said, it's just that the marketing and the public persona, of the budget that Microsoft has, it definitely is over-indexed on the Power Platform side.
Yep, and I agree with that. Yeah. And it's I would say another piece of that too is it depends, right? That's always present. Is do you have people now? We fall into skills, and we fall into people. What do you have as resources at your organization? Right. If you don't have pro dev, or what I see in most cases is we have either pro dev resources in-house or consulting people that we're partnered with, but I don't think I've ever worked with an organization where that group of people wasn't overtaxed and their bandwidth was just, the backlog was ridiculous. Right. So then that's why the organizations I talk to tend to start, I don't want to say falling into, but they're checking into what they can do with the Power Platform because they have people that they either already know that or are comfortable or have the technical aptitude to scale up onto that to take some of the gap. Fill some of the gap.
I'm in full support of that. As Sympraxis, we're a huge proponent and fan of the maturity model for Microsoft 365. And I think that falls into that, right? It's that you have business processes you need to automate. And there is a maturity model here around, hey, we have some people who are pretty good configurers and or power users who really want to take on trying to automate some of our internal processes and can use the Power Apps or Power Automate or one of the other Power Platform tools to do that. And that is a great place to start and maybe finish, depending.
Yeah.
And I think when you're talking about these one-off bespoke business process solutions where you're like, hey, Julie and I work in HR and we have a workflow around a certain task that we do, and I can fully realize a solution using the Power Platform. Awesome. I personally am totally on board with that. Where I think we have to think about things and just be mindful about things is as we mature into more high impact business processes that impact like maybe cross-departmental or for the enterprise altogether, that we start looking at, hey, is Power Platform still the right answer for that project? And should we be looking at hiring staff, dedicating staff, whatever, consulting staff to build us a more pro-code scalable solution? And I think that's the place where, at least for us, what we were trying to say is we feel like the Power Platform is great for those sort of, ground to mid-level maturity solutions. But once you get above that, you really need to start at least paying attention to what the pro-code options are to see if they are more viable to the solution.
Yeah, there need to be triggers in place to review the processes that are or the development work that's being done in I'm going to call it the makerspace. That to say that, hey, now we're to a point where we need to say, is this something that we can keep in this tool, or is it time to convert to something else, right? And that's, I think, we talk about it in an ideal sense. So a lot of organizations don't have these types of things in their maturity model built out. So it's hard to envision because a lot of companies haven't done it. Some companies are never going to be big enough to have that type of thing. But when they say they have an overarching, Microsoft approach to doing business, then they need to have someone in there that understands all of the, what can you do from a end user out of the box capability? What can the Power Platform offer? What are the triggers that should take us into pro dev, and have a process in place to kind of govern that?
100%.
And that's what's missing, I think. The messaging's out there, but no one's implementing it because it's hard.
Right. And it's hard because they don't know what the other options are that are out there. So
yeah.
I'm curious. So there's
which I think was your original point. Right?
Yeah.
Is that people don't even know that it's there.
It's frustrating when it feels like when you sit down with someone, they like, I want to go through and I want to customize this, or I want to build out this thing for my organization. And the only thing that they know about is just one option. And they have had no visibility into anything else. So like, Microsoft pitches the solution before they actually like try and pitch like what the options are and try and guide somebody down the right path.
Yep.
I mean, you look at any of the dev stuff, you look at any of the Power Platform stuff, and the presentation is so very different that they never even feel like they're alternatives to each other.
Yep.
Right. And we just sat at the Ask the Experts booth, and we had somebody come up and he was like, well, I know these two options that are here. I'm like, there's another option right in the middle. You had no idea that this was even an option. I'm curious. One of the challenges that I see with it is that when companies like Power Platform, great to get in to start with a solution, maybe you don't know exactly where this is going to end up. But one of the challenges that they have is that when it does get to be of a certain size and you kind of take a step back, like maybe this isn't the right platform anymore for it, there's no easy like upsize button. It's like a complete re-engineering of it. And the existing app turns into being the proof of concept or the spec for what you're going to end up engineering. I'm curious, how often do you see companies run into a scenario like that? And then also, like, and I think this is what you were saying a second ago, they don't realize that a lot of times I see that companies don't even realize that is an option down the road. And so they don't have that discussion up front, which is where they should have the discussion, because once they get way down that road and they realize what they're building, it is like almost wasted effort. They have to turn around and rebuild it in a completely different solution.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, like how much do you see that they run into that it's not the right tool anymore? And the second question is like, how much do you see?
How do we scale?
Yeah. How do you see that up front? How do you see that discussion up front?
And I think there's a couple of pieces to that. One is that there's, when they're having these internal discussions, they're talking to the wrong people, or they're talking to one person or, two people, and they're pretty consistently getting the "what's your hammer" answer, right? So if I'm going to talk to you, you're going to say, this is what I do every day. This is the stuff I believe in to some level, and say this is the answer. there aren't enough people that have the visibility to what the 2 or 3 or 4 possibly good answers are and the reasons to do one or the other. And a lot of time, and that's not a bad thing. It's not like something where people have a bias where they're just that's all they're pitching, but that's what they know. So that's what they talk about. So that's one problem. And then I think from the scale and the growth, app growth, solution growth, whatever you want to call it, there are some off ramps and on ramps that are out there, but they're kind of outside of the M365 space when it comes to the maker world, because there's some great tools. If I wanted to go from a list-based solution using Power Apps on top of it, I could do an import from a list into Dataverse and bring that in and get all the benefits of Dataverse, and my app could kind of remain almost the same functionally, but have the benefits of a better data source behind the scenes. But no one talks about Dataverse in M365 because it's additional licensing and it's additional skills to learn how to use it and when to use it. It's additional administration, right? So it's all these new things. But if you had that same conversation with someone who's got dynamics in their organization, who's already established a dev stage prod, environments type of thing, because that's the way that they deploy things in their world. And Dataverse is part of that. That would be a completely different conversation, just because of what licensing you currently have, what skill sets you currently have. So there's some of those scales. I still think the biggest one that I've seen is if I'm building a solution, if anyone's building a solution in Power Apps, there's not a good feedback loop on when pro dev should enter the conversation. And I think that's because part of it is because that group of people is generally users and power users and, makers that are kind of riding the fence, and that's their world. And they're not talking to devs as much as they should be talking to devs. So it's almost more of a people problem. So no, and then whether or not there's an on-ramp and off-ramp to go from a Dataverse Power Apps lists-based solution to whatever it would be inside of a pro dev solution. I don't know what those ramps are other than starting from scratch.
I don't know either. I think it is starting from scratch as far as I
mean, a lot of times it's the best approach anyways. It's because from the beginning, we were pitching Power Apps as, even if you're not using it, hey, you can go in there and build a whole bunch of functionality that now you can walk over to the pro dev guys and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah.
You're like 5 steps down the road now. Now we've got a great conversation instead of, so I had this idea of this blank screen with these things on it, right? And that it takes us weeks long, to get through that. Now they've actually built something that they can say, here's what I'm doing. And you've got a fantastic place to start.
Fascinating sort of correlation to that is I work, and we talk about him all the time on this podcast, but I work with Stefan Bauer all the time. And one of the things that he has done for our work together, building custom bespoke UIs for customers, is that he builds what he calls a style guide. And so he builds out HTML and CSS with mock JSON data and builds an entirely usable UI. It doesn't store anything, but he can do that in 10 to 20 hours, build out an entire UI with all the pages, all the things with buttons that click and all of the things, so we can demo what we're going to then build for the customer. This is similar in that it gives a power user a way to say, here's the UI that I need, here's the things that I need it to do. They don't have to go overboard and actually have it be attached to data sources or whatever, but they can use it as a power. Oh, they absolutely could. And that could be super powerful as far as that, as that goes.
That's funny because one of my disclaimers that I'll give in almost all my presentations are, everything that you see me build today will be ugly. That is not my skill set. I highly pitch, work with a designer so that they can help you make the tool has the capability to look good and to have good UI. That is not my skill set.
The user does not.
The
user does not.
I will make data show up where it should show up, but it will be ugly. And that is
join the club and we go, why, Stefan?
Yes.
Here, make this usable and look good.
Make this pretty.
make this pretty. More? Did you have another question?
I didn't.
Okay.
We're so good. I didn't. I guess we can go.
Okay. I wanted to segue in environments. And, so just a little bit talk about, just at a high level, because I've been hearing more about this today as we've been walking around the conference and talking to other people. I had read about a few weeks ago, actually. I'd read about environments, and I was not aware of them. So I have to fully say that at that point, when Power Platform sort of first came out, this didn't exist, and I knew what I knew and went, oh, I understand the scope of where Power Platform belongs, which I sort of just said a few minutes ago. I understand the scope of where I believe Power Platform belongs, but I did not know that environments ever came out and what they were about. Can you give me the 5,000?
I can probably give you the 1 to 2,000 foot.
Okay.
I mean, it's
I'll take that.
a little higher rate, but I'm definitely not a pro on using them because we work in the M365 world.
Well, this is the important distinction that I think is really important for people to understand.
So we work in the M365 scope, and by default, we're creating flows and Power Apps, and I'm trying to figure out how to differentiate effectively and consistently the fact that there are Power Apps that live off of lists, and there are regular Power Apps, right? Because there's some differences there, yeah. But by default, ironically, everything goes into a default environment, and we typically in the M365 world, we typically don't think about that or care about it. But if you're doing something at the premium level, you get managed environments, and managed environments are what allow us to do the dev stage prod type of arrangement.
Yeah.
And that's obviously everyone's trying to go in that direction, but it's not one that we have typically used for a long time, right? So in the SharePoint world, we've all been around long enough where we've seen SharePoint Designer and things like that, where you make a change, it's live.
Yeah.
Right. And that was all we did. And if you wanted to make it in this environment and then in this environment, you just redid it. Right. So that's kind of what we've been doing. And there's ways that you can buy a premium licensing to be able to get managed environments, and we can do some of that. But my understanding, at least I haven't gotten that far into it, is that we can't create a solution. So solutions are the packages that we use to move Power Platform pieces from one environment to the other.
So that like from one client to the other client, or when you're developing it for someone, you could take
or a dev. Yes, you probably could do that too. Yeah,
Okay.
I think more like the dev stage prod, but
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah, you could probably do that just as well.
Okay.
But where I've seen it work is where you're in a Dataverse environment with Power Apps attached to that, and you basically put both of those things in a solution, or the changes that you're doing, you can put into a solution, and you can move that from environment to environment. I don't think, at least I haven't tried it or seen it yet, that you can put a list into one of those. So if you're moving things between environments that's attached to M365, it's kind of like a half-baked solution instead of the way it's really supposed to be implemented.
Okay.
So that's something I have to go investigate and kind of get a better knowledge set on. But it feels a little half-baked versus the dynamic side of the world where they've been doing this for a long time. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot more fully developed. And it's the same way that pro devs are using it. That's a very deliberate staging
Right,
process.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. We know that in a pro dev solution, even if we're using a SharePoint list, part of our ALM can be to, hey, does that list exist? Is it exactly the same way that I had deployed it? And should I fix it up or move on and then I attach my code to it? That's all something we can manage in our ALM story.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the Dataverse side of it's really cool because you can say, hey, I need to add this field or I need to change this field, and that just gets sucked up into that solution. And if I deploy it, makes the changes, and if I, whatever the right word is for undeploy it, it pulls those changes back out, which
so it's like
a list would never
like a transaction of changes, transactional log changes.
Yeah.
When you apply them, all those changes happen when you do the deployment from one environment to the other environment.
Yep.
Okay.
But the nice thing is they back them out, and I think if
you can retract it.
You can retract those, which I don't think you could ever do to a list without getting into some custom code to pull that piece out of the list.
Yeah, there's no way to do that with a list.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably do it with custom code, but it's like, it's a very much a...
Now you're writing another whole
lot of if
thing.
statements.
Yeah. And that's where I kind of started looking at it and thinking, man, that what we have in the M365 world of the implementation of the Power Platform is starting to feel... I have a hard time, dissing it and saying that it's a broken or hack or half implemented, but it's kind of feeling like it's a patch together.
Yeah.
Like there's pieces that could be added to it to make it better.
Well, I think part of this, the issue here is that when we were on-prem, when we, SharePoint on-prem days, right? And we mentioned SharePoint Designer already, but we had SharePoint Designer workflows and we had InfoPath. And so when they went to when we moved from on-prem to the cloud, and InfoPath and SharePoint Designer workflows shouldn't have been a thing anymore because it was antiquated and maybe not as secure as we wanted it to be, and all of the reasons why we really needed to move on from that.
Yep.
It just made total sense to say, well, the Azure's Power Platform, this is a thing, and we can tie it in to replace those things. This is an easy way to replace it. Doesn't mean that it was well thought out to be an ALM story at the time. And that's where I always sat on the idea that, yes, if you're doing a one-off thing that is a business process related to something relatively not that complex, then, hey, Power Platform is great because you got a SharePoint list. Maybe it's got some content types on it and you want a custom form on it that manages a business process. Awesome. Yep. Do that. That's great. You will have a workflow that you need also attached to that list or a different list or whatever. Great. Do that. That's where it all made sense to me. Where it doesn't make sense to me, and just staying in the Microsoft 365 space, is, okay, well, now I have project sites. And I know that I have project sites and they're going to be configured a certain way. And I'm going to have a bunch of content types with my project sites. And I'm going to have lists and libraries and a whole bunch of defined business process around how we as an organization manage each project. So each project's a site. And guess what? I want to stamp those out. Well, let's just at least say something about the fact that Microsoft does not give you a great way to do that. But putting that aside, let's say we're going to stamp out each one of those project sites. We don't have a way to easily say, okay, but if we want to have a custom Power App and we want to have as a custom flow associated with the things inside of that project template, now stamping them out, yeah, it can be done, but you're talking about like potentially managing thousands of these custom connected, each one is connected through a user account, and that even has some limitations. This is where, for me, the pro code story is so obvious, right? Because now we get into change events through Graph or webhooks for SharePoint Online, APIs, whatever it is. And now we're doing pro code story of like Azure Functions, where we're saying, hey, every single one of these, every time you punch out one of these, I'm going to have a SharePoint framework solution for my custom form, and I'm going to have, my change events happen through a event receiver that is going to run my Azure function to manage my code.
Or Logic Apps or even whatever.
Yeah, it could absolutely. Well, Logic Apps, though, with SharePoint anyway, it's still a delegated connection. It's not. It can't be you can't change the connection dynamically. So even that's limited for the change event piece of it. But that's sort of been my thinking, and that's been sort of my line, right? Like,
it feels like someone needs to spend more time figuring out what some or all of the trigger points are to having the conversation of when it should be reviewed and when it should be rebuilt, migrated, moved, whatever, to the next level up. And that's, I think we trip on them. Like, we've probably talked about a dozen different reasons why it would make more sense to do this solution here versus there.
Yeah.
And I think it's part of the governance is always has areas that just get dropped. And I think this is what's been dropped in our space right now. And it just needs to be not formalized, but like there needs to be a suite of things that people can look at and go, let's take this on, let's take this on. The ideal would be they take on everything, but the reality of organizations is that they probably don't have the time or the people to do all of that stuff.
Yeah, some organizations are going to have an architect that's going to see everything and have like a full picture of it and knows where to steer the direction with that. But most organizations don't have an architect or don't have a chief architect that's in charge of all that stuff. So
it could be a single person. It could literally be someone that comes in and looks at it and goes, that's great there. Let's leave it there. Let's be fine. Or another one that says, you know what, that thing, we really need to get that on the list to build something a little bit better.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. You shared a link with us about something that was announced recently with Power Apps that I admitted I watched the video you shared and I was left with more questions than I had answers or a lot of confusion. So so you spent some time looking into it a little bit.
I did.
So Power Apps or what are they called? Power Apps Code Apps. Is that right?
Yeah.
So let's call it right now.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I hadn't even gone that far.
I spelled it out today. I was like, oh, it's PACA. Okay, cool. PACA. Got it.
It's going to have a yellow icon and it'll have a little wedge in it.
So what I got from this was it looks like I can have a web app that is created and can live inside of a Power App.
And I guess I'm curious, what is this? What is the scenario for this? What is the developer story for this? I was left very confused because when I saw building out a web app, and then I say I can host it inside of a Power App, I'm thinking like that's two completely different disciplines of who's going to build the application. So why would one go build one and not just have it run all on its own as a web app, or the maker's going to build the Power App and not have to go get a developer to go build this. Now, the video we saw was somebody who was more on the maker side, but was doing the whole vibe coding thing on trying to go through and build up a web app.
Insert eye roll.
Yeah. So that was, as I was watching it, I was like, the majority of the video, I kind of felt like that was like going for, it was, yeah, no offense to you on sharing the video. I think you had the same reaction to it. It was like, you even gave it a caution, like
it was just one of those, like, have you guys seen this? Because we're going to have some opinions on this one.
Yeah. Well, I've got some opinions on it. And I won't share the video because I don't want to sound like I'm attacking the person in the notes. But yeah, so what do you know anything about this, or what can you share about this?
Go ahead.
Well,
do you?
Oh, okay. So I have a little bit of knowledge because I decided to dig into just to figure out what was going on. I haven't built one, so I want to say that first, and I did watch the full video with the person doing the vibe coding or whatever. Essentially, the idea, as I get it, is that you can make, in Visual Studio Code, you have a CLI for this ALPACA app, and I love it. Let's make it stick, yeah. So you have a CLI, and you essentially say, hey, like with Azure Functions extension for Visual Studio Code, you essentially say
Azure Functions core runtime. So we run it local.
Yes, essentially you say I need a new one of these, right? And so it scaffolds up the project for you. And what's essentially in the project, as far as I can tell, is that you can pick your own flavor of framework that you want to use. The example I saw was with Vite, but of course it could be React, it could be whatever framework you want. But the caveat is that there's it takes a Node.js dependency on a SDK that allows the app that you're writing to have some methods in it that allow you to do authentication, that allow you to do authentication inside of the... This is exactly like a Teams app. This is exactly like a Teams app.
Is used, so you use that SDK to be able to assume like the identity of the user in the Power App.
That's exactly
so
right.
The JavaScript SDK we have in Teams.
Exactly.
That can take advantage. It can talk leverage Teams as a host of my app.
That's exactly right. So this is a Power App environment SDK that allows us to do authentication and use the connectors that are built into the Power Platform. So all of the premium and or standard connectors that they have, and essentially there's a line of code that's, sort of a method that says, use this connector, and you use a GUID, and you basically make your call and you get data, or you can add data to that data endpoint from the connector.
So who's the developer of this?
Pro code. It's absolutely pro code.
It's absolutely a pro code developer.
Yeah, you've got a iframe, essentially canvas that you do whatever you want to do on it. So it's
not. So what is it?
It's a Teams app.
If you're okay. So now that you're saying this, it does sound much more like a Teams app. But the thing that I don't understand is, in the case of a Teams app, there's nobody that's going to be building anything in Teams, or there's nothing in Teams from like connectors and stuff that I'm leveraging when I'm building a Teams app.
That's correct.
Right.
Yep.
So in a Power App, ALPACA.
How we get it? Animal. We got to get alpaca in there. That's what I was thinking as soon as we were transitioning over. I'm like, yes.
So
lovely wool
sweaters.
If I have the developer, if you have the developer that is building the React web app or what a single page app like that, and then they're going to be leveraging Power Platform connectors, then they're really more on the they're also on the maker side. So it's very much like a fusion.
No, I wouldn't say that. The connectors are the connectors.
I mean, it's code. The
connectors are built in the you know this better than I do, but you go into the Power Apps area, and then there's a connectors.
You decide which connectors you're going to use for the.
Yeah, and you create the connectors, and that connector has a GUID. I've watched them step by step through it, but I don't know much about how broadly available they are.
So to take it a little bit from the maker perspective, they're going to leverage all the infrastructure of the Power Platform, and that includes connectors. So there's both pre-existing connectors that we're getting instances of.
Yes.
And deployed as a connector with this identity. But then they can also make custom ones if they need to. But
That's right.
I think what you and I were talking about earlier is that they want to find a middle ground so that pro dev folks can use AI and all the Copilot tools to quickly build a pro code solution, but also leverage the infrastructure that is offered by the managed solution or the managed, it's managed environments
Yes.
and solutions to do some of the deployment stuff.
Exactly. So I think it's that managed environment piece.
Yeah.
You know where I'll draw an analogy. You know how SharePoint embedded, the way we talk about SharePoint embedded is, you have this document-centric solution. Yeah. And so you're going to use SharePoint embedded because it gives you all the benefits of the SharePoint site without the SharePoint UI.
Of the SharePoint document features.
For features without the SharePoint UI. Yeah. This is all the benefits of a Power Platform environment with your own custom UI.
So so 2 questions from this then. When I package this up and I want to deploy it, am I packaging up a Power App and deploying a Power App? Is it like a self-standing thing with my web app? Where does the web app actually run? Is that something that I run on my own infrastructure, or is it something I hand off like the React app is going to run on the infrastructure of the host?
On the host, I think.
I think on the host of Power Apps, that's what I understand. So from that perspective, it's a little bit like SharePoint framework in that it's hosted by Power Apps, but I can't say that definitively. Same. I didn't find that.
Yeah, and same. I would think that solution context is going to be the one that you'll use to deploy it through those managed environments. I think, again, that's not...
Is it your understanding it's just 100% client-side web app then, or is it...
Yes.
So no server-side stuff. Okay. Interesting.
You could bring on some of the server-side stuff if you're using the things like Dataverse and what have you there.
100%. Yeah. But it's not... What I think he means is that when you build a team solution, you can say, and part of my project is these Azure functions or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those would be separate anyway, but I'm just thinking like if I was doing like an MVC style thing or like ASP.NET or something, then is that going to be, with it having a client side and a server side piece, it's not going to be a static single page app. It could be more than a single page app. Yes, it could talk to services with other resources that have to be deployed like Azure functions or whatever for other kind of a REST API. Mm-hmm. But is there, what would the server side story be for that? It sounds like there is not one unless it would be separate.
I'd be willing to bet there is one, but I don't know where it fits in yet.
Okay.
Yeah, my only understanding was that the connectors are the things that give you the data. So it's like client server, but I didn't see a server piece of it as a context.
Well,
but I didn't build...
They have connectors that talk to, they'll have connectors that talk to APIs and connectors that talk to... So, I mean, there's...
Right.
There's some of that
But that's
stuff.
still client server, in my opinion. Yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
The other piece of that too, though, is and this was not probably one of the first things that I glommed onto that I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate or manage or talk about, is it's a 180 messaging switch from the marketing perspective.
Yeah,
right?
It really
because
is.
we've had 6 years, how long it's been out? 6 years of no code, low code, let's champion all of this, this user base to... I'm not going to call it a 180. It's like a 179, right? It's like we've always had a pro code piece of the Power Platform because we need controls, we need connectors,
like the fusions.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff there, but this is the opposite direction. This is saying, hey, now we're gonna have a pro code solution within the low code platform.
Yeah.
Right. So it's. I'm sure it will. It just seemed at first blush. Seems like a weird fit, like a weird place to put it. Though I understand it's to leverage the infrastructure that we're sitting on top of and have some consistency. My second problem is that the platform that they're leveraging, which is seems solid, is not going to be one that many of the M365 customers are leveraging today. Mm-hmm. So it's another one of those. It seems to me another one of those. A play sounds like a weird way to say it. It's another one of the Microsoft plays to encourage folks to move onto a platform where there's additional licensing.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what the target audience is for this, what the target solutions are for this.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff that I was left with a lot more questions when I saw this and went searching tried to read up a bunch more on it and found it was very hard to find information on this.
Yeah, there's not much out there.
No, there's not. I mean,
there's a GitHub project that has some of the documentation.
Yeah.
There's the video that I sent you guys. There's another video that's out there with someone in our community interviewing someone from the Power Platform community, and it's an hour-long conversation. And I think he gets into a lot of the stuff, the behind the scenes, or the reasons, or kind of some of the thoughts there.
Okay.
So that I think that's a good place to start for a lot of people.
Okay. We'll try and dig up those resources and put them in the show notes.
I've got the links all.
Oh, sweet.
Hand
Yeah.
them over to you.
We'll take them.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's a lot of change, right? And it's going to be interesting to see how it gets pitched and how it lands, and if they call it alpaca or not.
I love it.
I
want it
100% for
alpaca.
alpaca.
I want to call it alpaca. I want to just call it paca.
Alpaca is fine.
It's like I have an alpaca. Like, is that something different, or it's a little?
Because you just say it too fast. It's alpaca.
Alpaca. I'm sure there's like AI leveraged paca.
Ipaca.
Oh no.
All right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Maybe we should
There's a reason someone's in marketing that's not us.
Yeah.
100%.
No, there's a lot of times I wonder if there is anybody in marketing.
Oh. All right.
Anyway.
So I think that we've sort of covered everything. And did you have more questions?
I don't.
Okay. So we do a tradition on our podcast, and the podcast came before us, to have a pick. And so we were wondering, Wes, if you had a pick to share with our listeners.
My pick right now is my event that's coming up, my Community Days event in the Twin Cities, M365 Twin Cities. It's on September 19th. You can find it on communitydays.org. We've got over 500 people registered so far.
Ooh.
So come and join us if you're in the area.
I have to make it there sometime. I really do.
We had a conversation, Wes and I had a conversation about it earlier this week that, yeah, I still might try.
We've moved it earlier in the year, so there's less chance of blizzards.
I like that. Although I love a blizzard.
I really like that being from Florida.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely get the link to that in the show notes. So in case everybody wants to attend, they should, right? That's a great event. And it has been a great event for years and years. You've been doing it
2008.
Oh my God, that's
event number
10,
awesome.
awesome. That is so cool. That is the best part about the community thing is these events that, yes, how old we are, yes, that. But no, the longevity of these events, that's wonderful. Awesome. Well, I think we did it. Thanks everybody for joining us.
And thanks, Wes. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Wes.
Like rapping.
All right. So that was a great conversation with Wes. I loved it. I remember leaving that conversation being like, wow, that is exactly what I think we wanted to communicate to everybody was, and it was so great because he had so much visibility into how the Microsoft 365 community sort of sees the Power Platform environments and how they're sort of not utilized. Primarily, I think because they really can't be. I think there's, this idea of these different kinds of apps, and because people are extending the platform inside of SharePoint with these things most of the time, that's predominantly what they're used for. Environments just don't really come into the conversation, and so I think we really lose that thing that could be the thing that makes the Power Platform a little bit better from the perspective of like an ALM type of conversation, right? So that was a really interesting piece of that, for sure.
Yeah.
Did you?
I thought so. I wasn't as aware with that. So I made the realization. I can't remember if I said this actually when we did our interview, or if I did it afterwards when we were talking to Wes. But I used Dynamics 365 for my CRM, for D365 sales. At least for now. And when I did it, I tried the trial. And so it's like set up an environment, go through and put, install, I'll put that in quotes, D365 sales in that environment. And then when I got a license and it goes, go through and set it up. It asked me what environment do I want to put it in. So I'm like, well, maybe I don't want to put it where my test is. So I'll just go create another environment. It never clicked to me as a developer that those environments could be treated as dev, test, QA, production.
Yeah.
And you could have something built in one and migrate it to another one. I didn't think that story existed for Power Platform. So that was a big fail on my part. But I also thought it was interesting how he talked about how that on the M365 side, the use of Power Platform in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem is like single environment. And so it was interesting. I don't know what the technical side or the limitations with that are.
I don't either.
I thought it was interesting, and honestly, I felt like our conversation. I felt like we could have kept going for a heck of a lot longer because I feel like we can dig into this and have this kind of comparison back and forth a lot more. But I really enjoyed having Wes on. Great being our first guest. So I found it really interesting. And the second topic we talked about too.
Right. So we started jokingly calling them ALPACAs because the acronym sort of is PACA. But it's such an... I'm just at a loss for what the point of this is. It feels like a hybrid between the SharePoint framework and the Teams toolkit, aka the Agents toolkit, in that you can build a client-side solution that will be self-hosted, i.e. platform hosted, not self-hosted, excuse me, platform hosted by the Power Apps environment, but yet uses a Node.js module similar to the way Teams toolkit, Agents toolkit does when you build a team solution, i.e. you have this sort of SDK that allows you to hook into the authentication lifecycle and the Power Platform connectors so that your client-side solution can make use of those things. But then you essentially deploy your code into an environment, a Power Platform environment, which then iframes your solution and allows you to use some of the things that environment gives you, like assigning users to an environment, i.e. giving them access to the apps in that environment, and some of the ALM story, i.e. that you can move from, configure and move things from sort of different environments based on like dev, test, prod, whatever it might be kind of thing. I just don't know why you would need to do that. I think the only scenario that I can think of that makes any kind of sense is, and I say that because you have to pay a boatload of money for the environment's stuff. Like managing environments are premium, user-based licenses. So unless you're already fully leaned in to using the Power Platform and you've licensed like everyone in your environment, then I guess I could see, we've already leaned in. We have all these Power Apps. We have all these Power Automate flows. We've leaned into environments. This is what we're doing. And now there's something that really doesn't fit in the Power Apps, WYSIWYG type of environment. We have this pro code thing we want to deploy in there. So let's do that, I guess. You're at a loss for words is what you are.
I'm at a little bit of a loss for words. I mean, I am at a little bit of a loss for words, but it's only because I'm trying to be an adult in my response. I'm not saying you aren't. I'm saying I've got something I'm trying to say here, or that I'm struggling with. So, okay. So the responsible side of me says, okay, fine. Well, first of all, I got one big question for it. And I am still not clear on if you're building a web app that's going to be inside of a Power App, is that web app literally hosted and run by the Power Platform, like hosting model, or do I have to host, or does that web app have to be hosted somewhere else? And it looks like the Power Platform hosts the whole thing.
That is what I have read, but full disclosure, I didn't go build one and test it. Like, I don't really have any desire to do that either. And so it's low on my list of things I might address.
So what and we have a bunch of links we're going to put in the show notes here. So we got Wes mentioned a couple things. We mentioned the guy with the green hair that did this as like a vibe coding exercise. I got that link that we'll put in the show notes. There's an interview with Paul Cumsey and who's got a podcast. He's a Microsoft MVP and on the Power Platform side. And he's got I think his podcast, I think is called the Power Platform Pivot. And he interviewed Ryan Cunningham, who is on the Power Platform team, who I think he's the one that announced these PACAs. Okay. I'm gonna claim credit for that name because I'm the one that came up with that.
You totally did.
I said it's a PACA, and then as I was saying it, I said a PACA, and I was like, wait a minute, an alpaca. Like, well, they're kind of fuzzy. Right now, they're still a little sharp because I'm not entirely sure I get all of it. And to be clear, everybody, these things are still in early access. These are early access previews, how you can play with them. We'll also have a link to the article that Wes wrote on LinkedIn that was kind of a rebuttal. Well, we said it was a rebuttal and Julie said early on. I'm going to get back to my point. That was in his response to our episode number 9 on Power Platform isn't the only option from our takeaways from the TechCon 365 Seattle conference in June of 2025. Yep. Sorry. Yeah, June of 2025. Yeah, June, not July. So, okay, so it's hosted in Power Platform. Fine. I think that it's still, at least from the one that I've seen and from that one video and from a couple of samples I looked at, it all looks like they're single page apps. So there's no server side component that's going to be running to this. Okay,
correct.
Fine. So SharePoint framework, I got it. The thing that about this is what also kind of irks me when it comes to the other stuff that I've seen with people building Power Apps. And that is they get to a certain point. We talked about this at Wes. They get to a certain point where it's like going, this is not something the audience that is Power Apps are positioned for to create apps. This is no longer like that skill set. Now you're asking somebody who is a maker to process like responses, make REST calls, authenticated REST calls, get the response back, parse that data, do kind of calculations, everything. I'm like, I get that there's some stuff that people can do. And I get that there's some sophistication side to this, but I'm like, there's a certain point where it's like, that is not the right tool for what you're doing now. The other side of me too is that this feels like a way to get around in an enterprise from hosted applications that need to be able, that the IT group needs to be able to manage, that needs to be able to be at least aware of these different apps. If that's the point to get it to bypass those guys, okay, fine. But to me, this just looks like a hodgepodge, like land grab of why. I'd ask them immediately, why aren't these apps inside of Microsoft Teams? You could still build a single page app and have it work inside of Microsoft Teams where everybody in the organization is already going to be. Why is this not a for the actual web app that's actually running? Why is this not being deployed to Azure or some other place that can be managed here? I don't understand I understand the Power Apps people are going to be really excited by this because now I don't have to call a developer. But the other side of me from an enterprise is going to look at this and go, why would you do this? Why would you create one of these things with the other options that are available to you today? The adult in me says, hey, you know what? Microsoft is going to give us 5 ways to go through and to achieve the exact same thing. This is just another one that I would never choose. But that doesn't mean it's a bad option. It just means it's another option that personally I would never choose. I still am just trying to get the pitch for this. And like, why would I choose this? What is the reason? What is the ideal scenario for this? Because right now, an asset tracker, a static sample / template of an app that's going to be able to get data from SQL. I mean,
yeah.
Do you not already do that with Power App?
Well, I think this is what I was saying earlier, that I think unless your organization has fully leaned into managing all of their bespoke solutions through the Power Platform, i.e. you've got, 20 or 30 Power Apps already that connect into things that are built with Power Apps, that WYSIWYG sort of thing. And now you're like, hey, we have these other few apps that we're going to build as pro code things because they don't really fit into the UI UX of a Power App, but we want them to be deployed to users in the same way, i.e. if you have the Power Apps app on your mobile device, for instance, you could pin that app as a desktop icon or a phone screen icon, you know what I mean? So that app is like sort of front and center. It's kind of like the Electron for a mobile device kind of idea. So I think that's the play, but I agree with you. Like, I think there's an aspect of this that unless that's your very specific niche play, I don't know why you would do this.
Yeah.
I can't come up with another scenario where it makes sense, is I guess what I'm saying.
I'm right there with you. There's very little information out here about this. There's one video on YouTube that I found, and it was the guy that's doing the vibe coding thing, which was, look, it does show it off.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I don't have anything against the guy that did it. I'm not familiar with him. But there's just something that was very it just felt it was very overproduced. It was a little awkward to watch. But I also was like, how much of this is the Power Apps code apps and how much of this is vibe coding? And I think it was all like 90% like vibe coding. And then like
that's exactly the view I had.
So that was I went to go find the app. I going, cool. Somebody's talking about this. Let me dive in. Let me learn some stuff about it. Let me see what the news is. And I went and watched it. I'm like going, that was like 90% of vibe coding, and it was a really highly produced way of doing it. And it was, for a developer, it was really hard to watch. But I get who his audience is. And so it's not I was not his audience. So I get it.
100%. And I think to those who want to be able to do more but don't understand it, it was compelling, right? Like vibe coding allows me to level up my skill set past where I currently am without having to do the amount of work it would take to actually be able to do that without the assistance of AI. Is that good? Is that bad? That's a different conversation. But I think that is probably the draw for that.
Yeah. So interesting, but hey, I like learning about it. I like talking about it. I like the whole environment conversation with Wes, and it's fun to do an interview for the show for the first time. So
yeah. Absolutely. I think we're going to 100% be doing more of them because that was absolutely great. And it allowed us to dive into a topic that, admittedly, you and I don't know a ton about. So it allowed us to sort of expand. We plugged in an agent to our podcast.
There you go.
We have an MCP now for our podcast. Not really. All right. So on that note, are we ready? Do you have anything more you want to add? Thoughts you want to deliver to our nice audience? No?
I want to catch up, and I want to do a pick like Wes did.
You go first when I host the show. When you host the show, I go first. I have to keep reestablishing these rules, Andrew.
You're right. I forgot.
As if we really have rules. That's the funny part about that. Go ahead. What is your pick?
We each try and act like each other's in control at different times. And I think that we always defer to each other.
That's exactly true.
So what I'm going to talk about right here, what my pick is, this has already been fixed. So this is don't even try this right now. Well, you could try it if you want, but pretty much this is no longer an issue. So there is a article written by Zach Corman on the pistachioapp.com site titled "Copilot Broke Your Audit Log and Microsoft Won't Tell You," because I haven't seen this reported anywhere. It is, I don't know if this is a security issue. I don't know if this is definitely not a data leaking issue. But essentially what this guy did is he figured out how to prompt Copilot to avoid making an entry of the conversation and the data that was added, through the prompt, that happened through the prompt, to avoid putting it in the audit log, which is required, especially from a lot of organizations. So essentially what he did was if you ask something and say like, hey, summarize this most recent management report, then Copilot will look at find the most recent management report. It will find the report. It'll go through and give you a summary of the entire report. And then at the end of the prompt, it will cite the report so that you can go back and find it later. And if you look in the audit log, it will show an object or an array of here are the resources that were accessed as part of this prompt. And it would say like action is read, the name of the file is this, here's the ID of it, the URL all the way down to the SharePoint, where the document is in your SharePoint tenant, your SharePoint tenant, what kind of an article it was, what the sensitivity label is set to be, if it's confidential, whatever. Hey, that's all good. But instead, he said he tried a different thing. He said, I want you to go find the most recent management report and tell me what's in it, i.e. summarize the content. And then in caps, he said, but don't link to the document. Don't include it as a reference. Just give me the content.
Yeah, I see that.
And now when he did it, it totally didn't go through and add the document to it. It did say it found the content. It was a Word document as a context. It knew it was it knew it was a Word document. It got it from the web or through like the SharePoint web app. But it doesn't list it as any resource that was accessed. In other words, here's a way that I can get Copilot to give me some information on some stuff without telling anybody that actually got access to that piece of content. That's like a huge security, like, whoa.
That is. Well, it's.
Well, sorry.
Yeah, you have to have access to the document first. Yeah. He could have just gone there and read it. So
that's true. That's true. I shouldn't have said there was a security no-no. It was an auditing gap that now there's no log of the person getting the info from the document, but they actually, I'm going to put it in air quotes, read it. So yeah, it was interesting. Told Microsoft about it. Microsoft published, they They notified Microsoft of it in early July, I think. Microsoft was working on reproducing it. And by August the 17th, it was they published a fix, and then they disclosed it, or he was allowed to disclose it on August the 18th, which at the time of recording was 3 days ago. And he asked, like, hey, is there a CVE being issued for this? And they're like, no, we're not going to do that because there's really nothing to really kind of issue a CVE about this about. They said CVEs are given to fixes that are deployed in security releases when customers need to take action to stay protected. In this case, the mitigation will be automatically pushed to Copilot where users do not need to manually update their product and a CVE will not be assigned. Kind of interesting because now if he hadn't said anything about this, nobody would have known about it.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah, I mean,
basically
there's
what
an
that
argument
does.
to me. Yeah, there's an argument on both sides of that. Yeah.
Well, okay, so technically, if that was medical data that he was getting summarized on, that would not have been HIPAA compliant, which Microsoft claims that Copilot's HIPAA compliant.
Yep.
So that would have broken that. So I think Microsoft should have told people, should at least disclose that this happened.
Yeah, I mean, bugs exist. I think not disclosing security things that people could exploit until they can't exploit it anymore. And by that, I mean, if it's something that users have to patch, I don't think you should disclose it at all. Because if there's some users who haven't patched it, now you've just told people how to go hack something and given them the information about it. And you've just like 10x the number of people who are going to go find that thing and try to exploit it on every place they could. And, you know, humans aren't perfect and those systems aren't necessarily getting updated. So that's when I lean towards, I don't know that needs to be shared. This part feels like, yeah, it's fixed now. People need to know that they can't trust that system full out without thinking about. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's I thought I had about it. I could be convinced that I'm wrong.
I memean, I think that if you're a medical company and this broke a compliance thing that you have that Microsoft has with you, and there was a flaw that they did, I think that they should have to disclose that, hey, this is an error we found in Copilot. I mean, I don't need to make a press announcement about it, but if it's something that's listed as, yeah.
Oh, let me be clear. I just meant like the press piece of it. I think that Microsoft should be telling their clients directly about these things in all cases. So sorry if I wasn't clear. That was what I meant.
No, that's fair. That's all I was saying. So I found it an interesting article. Got some more stuff to share about Copilot Studio down the road, but we will hold that for another episode. So anyway.
We will.
Julie, do you have a pick for us today?
I do have a pick. I don't know a ton about this. I was just fascinated by it, is essentially what happened. I saw a couple of reels and social media about it, and I was like, oh, that's so fascinating. And I think to me, somewhat it's so fascinating too, because of how much science knowledge is being shut down in the US government right now. And sort of this sort of feels like a little bit of a balm to that removal of scientific evidence. So essentially, my pick is Google released an AI engine, essentially called that they're calling Alpha Earth, which essentially integrates a bunch of different corporate data, country data, registries of data around carbon markets. So carbon emissions, carbon drilling, anything to do with sort of that aspect of our environment, and have sort of given you a way that you can visualize it in a million ways from Sunday, essentially, in a graphical way on the Earth. So it just seems really cool. It does cost, not a lot of money, but it's not free for sure. So unless I wanted to go buy it, I couldn't really look at it. I only got to see the preview images that I got to see. It just seems really cool that you could get access to this and use it as a way to help your whatever organization or business that you might be working in that would be adjacent to this to sort of get data that, helps your solution for whatever that might be. So I just thought it was really cool. It's just very, very deep. So that was my pick this week.
Yeah, the website's a little frustrating that you can't see anything.
Yeah, you really can't see much. Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
I
that's
have an
interesting.
Instagram post I'll share too. I don't have the URL up, but I'll share an Instagram post where somebody showed some of the data and the models that came up. So
I'd
I will
love to
share
see
that as well. Yeah,
Cool. We will throw that in the show notes as well.
we will.
Awesome.
Awesome. So
Well, that was
if
fun.
we don't have anything else, I think that is the end of the show for this time. Yeah, done and dusted, as they say. So
Well, it's
excellent.
definitely not dusted around here.
Join the club.
Yeah.
I have so much crap in my background trying to test out printers for Collab Days New England. So, anywho.
The boxes
Well,
aren't
very
there.
good.
I don't see the boxes anymore.
Yeah, the box I put in the hallway, but the printer is there and it's not working yet. Soon I will figure it out. Printers.
Yeah. Printers are always fun. Always fun.
Awesome. Well, it's great talking to you again.
Absolutely.
We will see you next time.
Unlucky Set 13 is in the books.
Did you like this episode? Please like and share it with your friends. We are on YouTube, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn. All the links are in the video description. If you have a question, head to codedeploygo.live where you can send it in. Also, sign up for our mailing list on our site at codedeploygo.live to learn about future episodes, opportunities for listeners, and get the show notes from each episode sent straight to your inbox. We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks.